So I'll move on to the second section of my topic. So I'll provide a very short outlook of survey of what happened in the neighboring regions. So let me begin at what happened in South Korea. The 338 generation, as I mentioned, they used to be the vanguard in the 80s when South Korea was experiencing the transformation from dictatorship to democracy. But what happened in this century are something actually new, because in the 80s, students played the vanguard, and they were the kind of the pioneer for the country's democratization through the radical protest. But what happened in this century is the rise of internet and social media. So there are two incidents of anti-American protests happening in the beginning year of this century are very important. One is happened in 2002, and the incident was triggered by the deaths of two Korean girls who were killed by two American soldiers driving a truck. And because the South Korean government does not have jurisdictional authority over this perpetrator, and the American court just make a decision that these two perpetrators were not guilty. So that created a nationwide outcry against the injustice. So there was a candlelight vigil that first emerged on large scale in that year, in 2002. And what happened in 2008 is that the newly installed President Lee decided to allow the import of American beef. And there was a previous ban on that because of the suspected mad cow diseases. And South Korea had been a major import of meat. But what happened is that the president just making a snap decision without fully informing the nation. And in that incident, that high school students have been very important. And all these, both these two incidents were actually not led by major NGO, political party. Most of the time they were organized through the internet, even though the internet at that time, the social media was still in its primitive era. So there are no Facebook at that time, but the whole discussion and mobilization took place in chat room, internet chat room. So that really give you an idea of the power of digital media. And also there are analysts who look at the so-called process of captivation, meaning once an incident has been circulated in this incident, and it instantly becomes a major focus. It grabs the attention, and what we call become viral, like viral spreading. And these are really, these two Korean incidents are really, I think, play a very important role to let us to see what will become more intense engagement of the social media in the more recent politics. And the next incident I want to share with you is what happened in Hong Kong, the 2014 umbrella movement. And it has to do with a political demand that the city want to be fully democratized, especially allowing its citizens to elect its top executive on a one person, one vote principle. So there was a lot of negotiation happening before and a lot of mobilization. But what happened in September 28 in that year was that the police used tear gas to disperse crowds, and the crowds refused to yield. And what happened is that 3 spontaneous formed occupation zones just emerged. And unexpectedly, it lasted more than 2 months. So altogether, there was 79 days of street occupation in a very condensed and busy cities. And people really were supporting this, and they were there days and nights. So they are encampment zone. People just become a kind of a village that is mutually supportive. And during this incident, there are discussion and negotiation between the student delegates and the government over the path of moving forward with the democratization agenda. But actually, they failed to reach agreement. And because it stretched into the 3rd month, so many people are kind of showing fatigue. and also residents who have to bear the full brunt of the inconveniences because many stores cannot do their business and many like buses had to reroute their service. So create a lot of grievances. So even people who were very supportive of the democratization become wary. So less and less people show up in the encampment zone. So the police just cleared the occupation zone one by one, and thus ended the whole incident. And so the aftermath is that many Hong Kongers were so frustrated, and there are rise of the so-called Hong Kong nationalism, and the people who used to call localism become more and more vocal because they become less satisfied with the situation that the Chinese government is managing the Hong Kong situation. So this is also one of the incidents that grabbed the international attention. And also we know that 5 years later there was a larger incident involved with extradition reform. If that bill were passed, it would allow fugitives to be transferred to mainland China. And that bill was proposed in February. In the end, it was withdrawn, but the whole movement has flared up in the summer. And so Hong Kong does not, because it's a one country, two system design, and Hong Kong operate its own judiciary system. And that was a legacy of the British colonial rule. And people in Hong Kong trust the rule of law and trust the independence of the judges. But whereas the situation in mainland China are totally the opposite, because a judge has to toe the political lines and to sentence, to make a judgment according to the party. So Hong Kong have zero trust on mainland court. But once this reform bill was passed, so many Hong Kongers feel that they were kind of mortally threatened. And we look at what happened in that year. The protests began with peaceful gathering and move on to more violent measures. So in the beginning in August and September in 2019, you saw people were throwing fire bombs, and people just vandalized the stores, and also people use physical force against people who try to oppose them. And that happened because Hong Kong police use more and more forces, and many people in the process, many people were supposed to rumored to be dead because of the consequence of political force. And you look at the whole what happened in the whole year, that we have more than 11,000 people being arrested, and 1 year afterward we see more than 1,800 people were prosecuted, and more than 100 people were sentenced. And actually, this protest has its own momentum. But when it came to the January 2020, we all know that because of the Wuhan lockdown and the spread of COVID, so this actually discouraged people from taking part in this protest. And also in July 2020, Beijing just imposed a national security law. And basically that ended the semi-autonomy of the city. So the protest is kind of repressed. But right now, even 4 years, almost 4 years later, we see that among the overseas Hong Kongers community, this diaspora Hong Kongers are still organizing for their city's cause. And the other incident I want to share with you actually began with an internet meme, and that spread out to become like a symbolism for regional pro-democracy solidarity. And that really began with Thailand and began with a fandom of a Thai star who had some argument with Chinese patriotic netizens. And so the Milk Tea Alliance that it's a funny name actually, but try to connect many regions and countries that who try to fought against the expansion of Chinese authoritarian rule. So that involved Taiwan, Thailand, and Hong Kong. And so we also know that Thai protests emerged in 2020. And also in later part, I will come to mention that we also in Taiwan saw the solidarity responses in Taiwan. And also that involved with Myanmar protests, because in February 2021, we know they are a military coup. So popularly elected politicians were all taken into custody. So the military government, junta, take everything. And currently Myanmar is still in a state of civil war. And we all know that the conservative in Thailand and Myanmar military are all supported by the PRC. So this multi-alliance actually envisioned a cross-national, cross-democracy alliance. And also the other incident I want to share with you took place in November 2020. And that has to do with the Chinese way to implement anti-COVID measures. We know the Chinese has a very draconian rule because it involved the citywide lockdown. People are stopped from moving from one place to another place, and people were asked to do the testing from time to time. And once you were tested positive, you will be taken into a detention center for observation, for quarantine purpose. So that took place quickly in 2020. But when it was near the end of 2022, this measure has been in place for almost 3 years. So people have become fed up, and people were disgruntled about that. So what emerged is in November 2023 is that there are 10 days of 2022, 10 days of protests. And it all started with a parliament fire in Urumqi, which happened to be the provincial capital in Xinjiang. And people thought that incident killed people because firefighters were preventing from reach the site because of roadblocks and this measure. So they become like innocent victim of state-imposed measures. So it really started among the major city in Nanjing, that students just hold a A4, a blank paper protest, and they just share that throughout the internet and social media. And students were on the forefront of this protest because they were also under a strict campus closure rule. So, for example, they were barred from leaving their dormitory, where they have to. So a lot of inconvenience out of that. So students become the forefront of this protest wave. So in 10 days, they spread out, not only in major cities in China, also among the overseas Chinese community. Many students in different parts of the world also joined this event. And we know what happened, that the Chinese government just ended the draconian rule over COVID. And we all know what happened was a dire consequence in terms of health, because many people were unprepared, and the infection just spread like wildfire. And also in the process, that the Chinese authority also arrested those who were involved. So this became a very brief episode, and is with participation from many young people, and also that caused consequences that it really ended the COVID measure earlier than expected.